name's Elaine Ulrich. I'm with the U.S. Department of Energy, and I'm part of the Sunshot Initiative, which is an initiative that is housed within the Solar Energy Office at the Department of Energy. The goal of the Sunshot Initiative, it was a decade-long goal that was launched in 2011. And the idea there was to take an energy moonshot, a sunshot, and to help to bring the cost of solar electricity so that it would be cost competitive with conventional forms of electricity in the United States by 2020. So we got started on this work, and amazing things have been happening since 2011. Solar costs have been declining at an incredibly rapid rate. And as a result, the amount of solar installation that's been happening in the United States and globally has been just unbelievable. I think a lot of folks, when I started talking to them about the work that we were doing, the Department of Energy, and what was happening in the solar market, folks are always asking me, why hasn't solar taken off? And it's because it was such a small industry that people haven't noticed how dramatically it actually has taken off. Just a few years ago, again, in 2008, the amount of solar that was getting installed was 30 times less than what it is now. And so even last year, 2015, about 7.5 gigawatts of solar was installed. In 2016, 14.8 gigawatts of solar was installed in the US, almost double. And the cumulative amount of solar that was installed in the US now is over 42 gigawatts. That's enough, you'll see, to power 8.3 million homes in the US. Last year, if you look at all of the new electric generation capacity that came online in the United States, 39% of it was solar. And it's because solar is so inexpensive right now. Again, we had this sunshot goal of becoming cost competitive by 2020. There are people who are saying that we've already achieved that goal, in part because, again, over the past 5 years, PV prices have dropped 67%. Right now, I know a lot of people are talking about, they're worried about the loss of jobs in a number of sectors. There are 270,000 people working in the solar industry in the United States. Of all the new jobs that are being created in the United States right now, 1 in 50 of them is a solar job. It's a huge market. It's growing. Solar and wind, again, are the vast majority of the new generation capacity that is being installed in the US. So from my standpoint, we're talking about optimism here. There are great things that are happening. This was a small market that is very, very quickly growing. Again, that dollar per watt cost goal, we think that we are basically at the point of reaching it. We've already had to establish new goals within our office. So to give you an idea, the goal at the time that it was launched was to bring solar to a cost of around 6 to 7 cents per kilowatt hour. We are now hearing very frequently about power purchase agreements being made for 3 to 4 cents per kilowatt hour. And our new goal is basically to have solar be around 3 cents per kilowatt hour by 2030 across the United States. It's the cheapest option that's available, solar and wind are, and we're really excited about all of that. So you might be saying to yourself, okay, here you are at the Department of Energy, you're working on supporting the development of solar technologies, you're helping to drive down the cost, but it seems like things are going really, really well. So, what are you focused on now? And how can you take all of these great things that are happening and what is it that we need to be doing going forward? One of the big concerns that we have is that, again, now that solar is one of the cheapest forms of electricity that are out there, essentially, for folks that install solar, they can achieve great cost savings. And we want to ensure that those cost savings are being passed along to all consumers, and particularly consumers who conventionally have had a difficult time because they're living in energy poverty. Again, energy poverty in the United States is defined as anyone who's spending more than 10% of their income on electricity, and a huge portion of Americans are living in energy poverty. Right now, about 40% of Americans are considered to be low and moderate income individuals, and so when we look at the kinds of innovations that are happening, the reality is that they are business and financial innovations, like the things that these folks have been talking about. Of course, we want to continue to advance the technology, make it faster, cheaper, and easier to produce. But again, the kind of innovations that need to happen often are in the financial, policy, and regulatory space. So right now, we've done assessments across the U.S., the National Renewable Energy Lab, and we know that almost half of residential rooftops and businesses cannot actually host solar because they don't have the sufficient amount of roof space. They may be renters, and so it's not an option for them. They don't have the right orientation. And again, when you start to take into account the financial considerations, that means even more folks can be left out. And this is a reason why we're now making a strong push to help to support more community solar and shared solar models, where basically the solar is not necessarily sited directly on the rooftop, but the electricity is being credited to consumers. So one of the ways that we're addressing this, and we're trying to drive innovation within the marketplace, is through a program called the Solar in Your Community Challenge. This was launched just last November, and I'm really excited to say that just this week, the prize administrator for this challenge was able to announce that we now have 172 teams across the nation that are participating, and those teams are all working to help bring community solar to low and moderate income populations or community serving nonprofit institutions. We had applications from 40 states, DC, Puerto Rico, and Guam. Again, 172 teams that will be participating and that are helping to bring solar to their communities. A couple of amazing examples of projects that are happening here. One of them is the Brooklyn microgrid. They're going to be putting in 1.1 megawatts, and to give you an idea, that's going to serve probably that could serve upwards of 250 residences, as well as 4 nonprofits. And what's really cool about this is that they're using blockchain technologies, which is actually the underlying technology for Bitcoin, but it can help with really, really low-cost financial transactions. So by proving out those low-cost financial transactions on the Brooklyn microgrid, people can be making these micro investments of as small as $25, capturing savings, and then over time having larger and larger investments so they can go from owning a quarter of a solar panel to a half a one to a full one to multiple panels, and over time then basically getting themselves out of that trap of debt that's related to energy poverty. Another great program is the Mercy Solar Gardens in Colorado, in the Denver area. They're going to be building 2 to 4 megawatts of community solar, and they are the nation's 5th largest affordable housing provider. We're so incredibly excited to have them as a partner, because knowing that a low-income housing provider is getting into this space, this is a scalable model. This is where we start to talk about those hundreds of millions of dollars that you can start to aggregate and have a portfolio that looks really uniform, and it means that we can really be helping to deliver these savings to these folks. So, to me, again, part of what we're trying to do here is to really drive that innovation in the marketplace and bring the savings and all the great benefits that come from having this fabulous technology out there to all Americans, and then hopefully to take the kinds of underlying financial and other technologies that are being employed to make this happen and spread them around the world. So,
thank you.